So today I'm going to talk about you could call it a necessary evil of regulations. We'll go into the implications of regulations, where they're at, the positives and negatives, and how that's going to affect not just our portfolios, but also the world in this new emerging asset class, as they call it. So we've got to have a look at where we're at the moment as far as regulations go. I'm looking at around the world, different countries and what they're doing and how they are treating crypto. And because you would think from all the media that it's all just for money laundering and scammers and drug dealers, and that really there's nothing really happening with crypto, and it's really not being taken seriously in all this. But I think we're starting to see a major shift in that narrative now. They can't hold it back forever. And now there's just too much information coming out about the real positives around it's not so much crypto, but it's about what the blockchain does. That's where we need to sort of look at what the use case is of the blockchain and and use case is the operative word here because I'm quite sure that those tokens that don't have a use case that can't match the other projects that do have a very good use case, then they are not going to they're not going to survive. And certainly the meme coins are not going to survive unless they decide to give it a really killer use case um, after the fact, after launching. So I notice a lot of meme tokens now are thinking about how they can actually wrap utility around the token rather than just being just like basically just a digital piece of, just like a wallflower, basically. It's just, they just, they're purely speculative and people are buying and selling them purely on the promise or the hope that the price is going to go up. What we really are looking for are projects where there's a genuine reason why the price will go up, and that main reason is actually being used in the real world. And that's sort of where I have been focused for the longest time. Um, But one thing I didn't realize when I started finding out about how blockchain would really change our system, and when I saw how incredibly disruptive it was and how potentially powerful it was for us people, as well as creating a fairer system overall. What I didn't realize is because it's got such some of these tokens that I looked at have such a great use case. I didn't realize that means that they're getting basically left until last for us to actually see what they're doing in the real world. So they're holding them back till last because they do not want to get any of us a sniff of what they are doing. So this is designed to keep us away. It's also designed to create a very dependent society on their favored project, which is obviously a central bank digital currency, or it might be a stable coin, which is basically like a CBDC, except it hasn't got the CBDC name. So we need to realize that they have a very large ulterior motive to squash crypto, or at the very least, if they can't stop it because too many people are, wanting it, or the fact is that the system it needs it, the system needs it because it's so broken. Then they're basically just not wanting us to actually participate in anything that might give us a leg up. And so this is where, for a lot of us, we have to actually, we have to interact in the matrix to a certain degree, just so that we can get our piece of the digital real estate, basically. And then the more of us that do that, then the fact is less for the central command to control, which means they lose power. What we got to realize is we're taking power away from them. The more of us that adopt these cryptos and use them peer to peer, that renders their system obsolete. And so that's why the more of us that come in and adopt it, makes it really, really powerful. But for the masses to come in, then we need regulations. Otherwise, it will just stay as an outlier. We'll continue to be at the crypto casino. Everything will still be speculative, and it's not going to happen for us. So the regulations are actually needed, and because we're early to crypto and we're getting in early, those regulations are going to be extremely beneficial for us, because because the majority of the population, by far, over 90%, have no idea or think crypto is not going anywhere, and they've dismissed it or they've denied it. And it means that they're going to have to rush in. And if we're already on this side of the fence, it's going to make it a hell of a lot easier, because you can imagine what's going to happen if 90% of the world suddenly realize crypto is here to stay, and it's actually part of the replacement of the system. Then there's going to be an absolute stampede to the exchanges and to the banks to try and get the money out, to get it into the crypto. And that would just not only would that create a hell of a lot of chaos, that is not what the system controllers want, because the banks obviously would just freeze up, and that would kill it right there and then. So that's why I think that there will be a cutover moment before we get to that stage, so that then they control the exit from, if you like, the exit from the current banks, or control the money flow and control the entry into crypto in a more orderly fashion. Although I don't see how it can't be completely orderly, because obviously there's going to be a lot of people who are just going to rush to get in. And it's already starting to happen, actually, especially since some of those banks started collapsing in America. In March last year, there was the big Silvergate Bank, and there was Signature Bank and Republic Bank. All of these banks that fell over then were very crypto friendly. So that I smell a very big rat there. They were basically taken out, removed them from the scene, and that would have upset a lot of projects that were banking with them, and a lot of people who were banking with them suddenly, they couldn't do anything. So that was all part of what they call the choke point agenda from the American government. anyways, that's sort of a little bit of my intro to regulations. So I was just going to look at a few articles that I pulled up here. And this one is from an Investopedia. It's a big investing media kind of online media site. And they're exploring all the different regulations around the world and where they're at. It's really quite interesting. Also, notice here, they say here, as cryptocurrency has become more significant factor in the global investment landscape, countries have taken different approaches to regulating the asset class. So they're calling crypto an asset. It's a digital asset. And it is a digital asset because it is a shareholding in the company behind that, the company and the project and the company that's built the blockchain and that crypto is a real company. And it's like investing in the shares. And shares, the stock market, is an asset class. So it's referring to a general grouping of fairly similar kind of products. But within crypto, we know that there are genuine crypto assets and there are also cryptocurrencies. But the cryptocurrencies also are an asset as well. But their primary function is to be as a global currency for buying and selling things on the open market, online, and also in stores, right? So, but they are going to appreciate in value as they get used. That's the ultimate use case, is a genuine currency as an alternative to our fiat or to the US dollar or to any other existing fiat currencies. It's giving us a genuine alternative. And for that reason alone, they're going to get adopted hugely. And because they're going to get adopted and used, then the price goes up. That it's really just quite, sort of obvious when you think about it. But remember, there's only really a small number of currencies, true currencies, and they're mainly in the under the ISO 20022 umbrella. And there are a few others. There are a few others that I've found. One's called WadsPay. That also looks very interesting. And there are a handful of others, but I think most of them, there won't be many, should I say, that will pass the acid test of getting through regulation. It's just the way it's going to be. I think a lot of them have actually already been chosen, to be honest. So anyway, we're carrying on this article. The European Union became the first to adopt measures requiring crypto service providers to detect and stop illicit currency uses. The US is slowly approaching regulation, but users, issuers, businesses, and regulators are busy battling it out in the court system. This is what always happens when there's a new asset class. Because when there's a new asset class, there's major disruption going on. So they need to slow it up in the courts so that they can get ready, and so that they can try and prepare themselves. In other countries, cryptocurrency is subject to different classifications and tax treatment. The US announced a new framework in 2022 that opened the door to further regulation. The new directive handed power to existing market regulators, such as the Securities and Exchange Commission, called the SEC. When I say the SEC, that's who I'm referring to, and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC. So now these bodies are regulators, and they are in there like a wrecking ball, punishing projects, taking them out, fining them huge amounts. They're really just a revenue collector for the cabal. That's what they are. They're a private organization that's working hand in hand with the government. So that they are officially part of the government, but they're actually acting like a a private company, and a lot of money is going into their pockets. There's no doubt about that. But the thing is, there's a big difference between these regulators and their so-called regulations and the actual law. What they are doing is not legal. It's not law. It's certainly not lawful. There's nothing about it in lawfulness, common law, but it's not even legal. It's not ratified in law, even though we know our laws are basically, hardly worth the paper they're written on anyway. But still, as far as the matrix goes, as far as the system goes, that is the law of the land. So we've just got to, put up with it. Anyway, so what the SEC and the CFTC are doing is they're basically using their power to, destroy projects that might compete with their plans and their benefactors' plans, and or they're slowing them up, or at the very least they're getting revenue so that they can at least get something out of the deal. So that's sort of something you've got to bear in mind, is what the SEC is doing. It's actually outside the law. And now finally in American government, there is a bit of a hue and a cry coming out about the way they're acting, and they need to rein them in. But I think the USA will be last. They will be last to the regulatory party. They will not be first because they want to see how other countries are dealing with it. They are not first because, being the biggest country with the reserve currency, they need, in their eyes, they need to wait till last. So that then they can make a grand entrance at the very end. And they do not want the biggest country, the biggest economic superpower at the moment in the world, coming in early, because that would set the market off like crazy, and it just would destroy their plans. But whether we believe it or not, you wouldn't believe it, but there's already 30 countries in the world that have law, have regulations set in law for cryptos, and we hardly heard a peep. And some of those countries are very, very large, like Japan and, Hong Kong, Singapore, United Arab Emirates, now the UK, and not just the UK, the whole of, actually, the UK is now separate from Europe, but now Europe as well. So, but the thing is that it's America that is the real lightning rod for crypto, and the media are, obviously playing their part in presenting all the negative news that's coming out of America, and presenting no positive news that comes out of every other country. So that's kind of why, when you try to talk to your friends, or you try to talk to people about crypto, a lot of people have no idea, or they just believe the mainstream narrative, or they think that you're absolutely crazy and you're dealing with some scam. But that is changing now as well. I really noticed a lot of people have started to go, hang on a minute, I would have thought this would have gone away by now. It seems to be growing. And if they actually took the time to look at the actual projects and look at the source of what's been developed, they would be blown away. But there's far too much cognitive dissonance for them to do that. They just want to believe the narrative on social media. They want to believe all the negative hype around CBDC. They focus on the CBDC. You focus on what is happening with the collapse of the banks. A lot of people focus on hanging on to cash, which is valid to a point. You know, we don't want to see cash go either. We want to at least it could be very useful for this transition. But the fact is that cash is terminal, like the existing system is terminal. If the old system's going down, you can be sure cash is going with it, because the goal of the cabal is to hyperinflate. They want hyperinflation. They don't just want inflation. They want hyperinflation. And that will happen if too much of the debt in America, if all the debt that's outside America, if what happens is these countries are selling the debt. Believe it or not, debt has a market and you buy and sell debt. I know it's crazy, but that's what they do. And a lot of countries now are dumping the debt, which means they're dumping the US dollar, which means those dollars go back home. They are sold back to the Fed. And if all the countries started doing that, then the America will be literally flooded with trillions of dollars that will just completely destroy the economy. It would create massive hyperinflation, and that would basically send shockwaves around the world. That would really, particularly us Western countries, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, all Western countries would be first in line and would be absolutely decimated. And then after that would come all the other countries. It would be like the massive, a catastrophe really on financial terms. And so I don't believe that's going to happen. I believe that they've got a plan for the US dollar that will save the US dollar, and they will completely digitize it and put it on the blockchain. It won't be going to zero like everyone's saying Bitcoin's going to zero or XRP is going to zero. I don't see the US dollar going to zero either. But they will rescue it somehow and probably digitize it and back it with real assets. Possibly gold, possibly silver, gold, silver, basket of whatever, because that's what the BRICS want to do. That's what the BRICS countries want to do. And if they do that, then the West will have to follow. So, so there's going to be a lot of noise coming up. There's going to be a lot of, you're going to hear lots of extremes from all quarters. There'll be a lot of shrieking going on about, we're all doomed, or the crypto is doomed, or USA is doomed, or we are doomed, whatever. China's taking over. There's going to be a lot of this noise. We've got to stay very calm in the center of this storm. And we've got to take the emotion out of it if we can. And emotion, when it comes to this financial side, is not a good recipe for your portfolio and for you to be able to sleep at night and managing your affairs. Emotion has a place, but it's not when it comes to this. Otherwise, we won't be able to have our critical thinking faculties in play to rationalize what's going on and be able to function. So please try not to buy with emotion. Don't sell with emotion. Just buy to hold and ride the waves up and down till eventually, we get to our new port, our new home, our new system. So, so having said that, I'm going to carry on with this. There's a whole bunch of stuff here about the SEC, which we'll ignore. So here we are, like China, they say China, the People's Bank of China bans crypto enterprises from operating in the country. They say they ban it, yet they've got one of the highest uptakes of crypto. So that this article is actually really quite disingenuous, because there is lots of ways. There is a big crypto holders in China, and there's so many loopholes. You could drive a Mack truck through them. And you've got Hong Kong. A lot of the crypto is bought in Hong Kong, and then it just goes across the border into China. And so Hong Kong is like the keyhole into the West. It's technically it is part of China now, but they have a completely different business and corporate structure. They have a different legal structure. They inherited a lot of things from their days as a British colony. So Hong Kong is the entry point to China. But even in mainland China, there are a lot of people who own crypto. There used to be a lot of Bitcoin mining, and yeah, they've banned the mining, uh, which was great for the US because a lot of the mining companies went to the US. However, they can ban it all they like because anyone in China can buy it from anywhere else in the world. Crypto is not specific to any one country. Crypto is global, and anyone in any country can buy any crypto when it is created in another country that you're not in. So this is why unification with regulations is going to be nigh on impossible. And I will go through that at the end about all the positives and negatives. So anyway, carrying on, they say, yeah, and in September 21, cryptos were banned outright. But as I say, just ignore that, because they are still, and they're about one of the third biggest countries in the world, third biggest holders of crypto in the world. So even with all these bans, it means nothing. Canada is a much more crypto-friendly country, which is interesting because Canada have gone very, very liberal woke. I know people who live in Canada. I know a few of them. They said the situation there is really bad. The whole woke stuff is really off the charts. It's completely skewed with reality. But anyway, they're quite crypto friendly, which I think they just know that it's coming, and they're just deciding that it's better to regulate it early and get in now. And look, there's a lot of greed at that top, and a lot of them just want it for the greediness of making profit. At the end of the day, the greed will win over everything. The UK, they have become very crypto friendly. They still have these AML, anti-money laundering laws, and the whole financing of terrorism, which we know is basically financed from the very people who are making our laws. I mean, but that's beside the point. What is, you know, who cares about that when there's big money to be made, right? So that's, interesting. The UK want to actually be a crypto hub and have the innovation, have the companies going there. So it'll be interesting to see what transpires there. So yeah, they say here crypto exchanges and custodian wallet providers must comply with the reporting obligations, but that's fine. I mean, that's just like business as usual before blockchain came along. I mean, the fact is our existing banking system is really one of the most corrupt and decrepit systems you could ever get. So it can't get much worse. And so whatever they put out, it's usually the official narrative. You've got to read between the lines, but it scares a lot of people. But when you're actually been in crypto and you realize if you've got self-custody, you've got possession of your money, then you're in the driving seat. And the more of us that do that, the less and less they'll be able to stop it, because they would literally physically have to come to your house to get the crypto out. I mean, that's just ridiculous. They don't have the resources to do that. So this genie's out of the bottle now, and the genie's only spreading around, getting bigger and bigger. So it's going to be a very interesting situation um, when reality meets the masses in their minds. Japan is by far one of the most progressive countries to crypto. They are extremely crypto friendly because they know what's coming in the financial system. And they are adopting crypto and blockchain because they know that this technology can assist to correct a lot of the imbalances in the previous system, in our existing system. It's not previous just yet. Just getting ahead of myself. But they know what's coming. They are one of the most indebted countries in the world. Their bank is under a lot of pressure. The Japanese yen is like becoming like the peso. It's very much devaluing against US dollar. They are one of I think the second biggest holder of USA debt behind China. So they hold a lot of US dollars. And of course, America are pressuring them to not sell that, you see. So I think they are turning to blockchain as a means to try and wriggle out from under this debt problem that they are in. And let's face it, the world is in. It's not just China, not just Japan. It's every country has got a debt problem, but Japan's issues were spotted very early. So yeah, Australia also, much like New Zealand, they classify cryptocurrencies as legal property. That's how New Zealand sees it as well. It's like property. And therefore you have to pay, tax, supposedly have to pay tax on the gain that you make, or you can supposedly deduct tax if you make a loss. But I think a lot of people are not doing that. They're just buying and holding. But eventually the tax issue is going to have to be faced. But in the meantime, I think that what will happen is what we can do is we could do a thing called voluntary disclosure. It's called. The tax have a thing called voluntary disclosure, and what you can do is you say, okay, I've got this crypto area, you can tax me on it now, and I didn't understand the law, and you can actually do that. So that's something that we'll keep under our hat. But I know Australia are very pro crypto, and there's a lot of people in Aussie who love their crypto over there. They've adopted it very readily. Singapore is another case in that basket. In fact, Singapore have an arrangement with New Zealand. I think it's Singapore, New Zealand, and I think it's Dubai. It's one of those, I think, United Middle Eastern countries. New Zealand has a information sharing thing going on. Interesting that Wirex is based in Singapore, and I think that's why Wirex has got much stricter over the last year, and that's why I've gone off Wirex, because I think that they are revealing New Zealanders buying through Wirex, and I've noticed they really tightened up on. They're always asking for ID and that, and I'm not giving it to them, so I've ditched them. But South Korea, very crypto friendly, very crypto friendly. India are on the fence. They're neither pro nor anti. They tried to ban it. They did originally try it. They banned it, and it didn't work because, India is one of the most cash-orientated countries out there. Although they've banned their 1,000, excuse me, they banned their 1,000 rupee note. So they've started already moving on cash there, and they're really trying to squeeze people. But by doing that, it just drove everyone to go to crypto. And the Indians, I've been to India 14 times, and they are incredibly resourceful people. they know how to get around the system really, really well. And because through necessity, because a lot of them are so poor, a lot of them don't pay tax. There's no social welfare in India, so there's no safety net like we get. So people are extremely resourceful here, and they give them an inch, they will definitely take a mile and go under the radar. Brazil, it's not legal tender in Brazil, but the country passed a law legalizing crypto as payment method. So Brazil obviously they're very pro crypto, which is amazing. European Union, well, as I said, regulations for stable coins are already in EU, and the full-blown crypto regulations are coming in on December the 30th this year. So that is going to be a major marker that's going to really start to accelerate the market. So the end of the year is definitely we will definitely be seeing a lot of things happening in the crypto space by then. It's obviously starting now, but it's just going to keep growing. It's going to get more and more hysterical, believe it or not. So then, yeah, so basically that's the guts of that article. Now, I was going to go and show you this article. This shows you at a glance all the countries and how many where it is actually legal. I mean, you've got a general ban in Nepal, you've got a partial ban in Mexico, but all these countries, there's a partial ban in Tanzania, Colombia, all these kind of developing countries, Bangladesh. Interesting that they've got partial or full bans in the poorest countries in the world, but there you go. But if you look through, a lot of countries where it's legal, absolutely. So really, in even though these countries have a general ban or whatever, a partial ban, it's still getting used in all those countries as well, because people are just, have got VPNs. They can sign up like they're in a different country, and then Bob's your uncle. You can buy crypto. If you've got a VPN that says you're in Australia and you're in, say, Saudi Arabia, whereas interesting, Saudi Arabia's got a general ban. Yet the amount of development that is happening in crypto and blockchain in Saudi Arabia is right up there in the very top echelon. And actually, that's another thing is, so they're withholding it from the people while they develop it in the background. And that's what you've got to understand. So if you take things at face value, you won't understand. That's why there's so many nuances to this space. South Korea is another case, partial ban in South Korea, yet they have got one of the biggest adoption rates of crypto. They are really up there in adoption. And interesting, South Korea is one of the biggest countries for XRP. South Korea buy more XRP than Bitcoin on a daily and weekly basis lately. In the last few months, South Korea are buying more XRP by far than Bitcoin. So, and they're very educated people. They know what's going on. They're not dummies. They're much more savvy and globally aware and financially aware. All the South Koreans, Taiwanese, also you could say the Chinese, Japanese, they are very savvy financially, and much more so than Westerners. And so that's really, really interesting to see that. Again, Pakistan, another third world country, the general ban. It's legal in Italy, a partial ban in Vietnam, yet they have something like a 50% of the population own crypto. So they can have the ban all they like. It's not stopping the people. This is what people have got to realize, that these government authorities do not have the power. We have the power, And the more of us that hold the crypto, the more power we're going to have, because we're taking their gravy train away from them. So there you go. So you can see, you know, and all the green ticks we got here. So each of these columns represent a different thing. So you got taxation, anti-money launderer, consumer protection, licensing. So on some things they're not so hot on, but a lot of the things they've got the regulations for these things. So and these countries in Asia and in Australia and all that, a lot of them have got regulations, and it's just driving more and more adoption. It's not stopping the train. So whether you've got bans or not, it doesn't make much difference. In fact, if anything, all it does is it helps the crypto people to motivates them to get in. And then just another report here. I was just looking. This is Price Waterhouse. They are one of the largest like accounting firms in the world. They are talking here about crypto and regulations, but there was something in here that I thought was quite interesting. Oh, maybe it was I must have just pulled it up but just as they say here, during the past year, the crypto asset industry has witnessed spectacular highs, overshadowed by lower lows, including crypto firm failures, fraud scams, and mismanagement of customer funds. They really always emphasize the scams and the fraud and that, because that's obviously the narrative, so that they can bring in the most stringent regulations they can. And it says here, while it is no fault of the underlying crypto assets or blockchain technology, it once again highlights the need for robust regulatory policy and supervision set on a global level. Now, that is what's going to be very, very difficult for them to get a global consensus on it. But anyway, we'll carry on. Global standard setters, including the Financial Stability Board, that's definitely someone we want to watch. The FSB, they're a regulator that are in the background in America, but they work globally. They're the ones who are making the real laws, not the governments. They are the ones that advise the governments how to regulate. But they're only one of a number. There are a lot of decision-making around crypto is coming from within the industry as well. So just, take that sort of with a grain of salt. And then they talk about the Basel community. The Basel community is around the banking stability. They regulate the banks. And banking supervision, financial action task force continue the efforts to set the right expectations of the market. They've got a very big job, because they cannot, there's no more power than people power when there is enough of us. And so they're just like some committee somewhere trying to, line their pockets or line their boss's pockets or the whatever. But really, you can't stop something where it's getting so big. I mean, they know now you can't stop it. They were originally thinking they could stop it a few years ago. When I first got in, crypto was going to be just as bad, and they were going to stamp it out. And I read these reports that crypto won't survive another year. And now here we are 9 years later, and it's on the brink of being mass adopted. So take what they say or what they do with a grain of salt. We are the ones who have the power, especially when we've got self-custody and we are already in it and we're understanding it. When we understand it, that gives us a lot more power than those who are swimming around in the world trying to make sense of what's happening now. They go on to say the European Union is at advanced stages of finalizing the new markets and crypto asset regulation. In the United Arab Emirates, Dubai authorities are setting up the world's first authority solely focusing on virtual assets. In the UK, the government intends to make crypto assets a regulated financial instrument. In the United States, there has been progress to advance legislation on digital assets, but timing of such legislation continues to be a question. Okay, so that's basically it for the articles. There's actually, if you Google it, there's tons of articles on crypto and regulation and that. But that sort of gives you a bit of an overview of what's happening in the world, because we've got to look at the whole world, because it is a global currency after all. Crypto does not respect borders, and it's not just a domestic currency. So now what I was going to do is I was just going to do a synopsis of the positives and negatives for crypto. So what's in crypto's favor, what's in regulation favor, what's positive for regulations is, well, it's going to eliminate a lot of scams. It'll eliminate majority of the scams. They will not be able to survive. So that's a good thing, because there are a lot of scams out there. And I think most people, including myself and everyone I'll say in this community, has probably come up against at least one. Some of us have come up against quite a few. So I'm glad for that. It will regulate probably the biggest plus is it will bring in mass adoption. And if it brings in mass adoption, that's going to bring in price appreciations that will be, all things being equal, it should be better than anything we've ever had before. I don't want to get too hypey over the price, and I don't want to mislead you or make you think that we're all going to be rich overnight and anything like that, because that is an area I just don't want to go. I have a responsibility to be kind of fairly conservative in this case, but I think that we at least will be doing way better than maybe some of our peers who refuse to get in. Even though we've made mistakes and we've been scammed, I think overall it's about winning. It's about winning the overall war. It's not just about every little battle. And I know we've been challenged to the core, but that's part of the territory for being so early. We've kind of subjected ourselves to being attacked because we've stuck our neck out a bit. Whereas the masses, like to swim in swarms. If some of the fish are going off their own way, the rest of the fish will probably think they're nuts as well. We're a bit like that. We're like fish that are swimming upstream or going against the grain. So pat yourself on the back that you're actually still here, even despite all the crap that we've been through. Regulations will bring in the big investors, and that means it's going to bring in industry. Eventually, in 10 or 15 years' time, every business will be on the blockchain. That's my big prediction, is that it is going to be bigger than the internet, because the internet's just the internet, and it brought amazing utility. Obviously, use case again. That's what really made the internet companies that provided big use case, lots of money, but they're very centralized, and all the money funneled up to the owners and the big shareholders. Nothing for the people. But this blockchain is not just a new internet. It's a merging of finance and internet, blockchain internet, along with other technologies like artificial intelligence. And so that is like a big kahuna of a change. It's what makes it way bigger than the internet. Because the internet originally was designed, the designers of the internet saw it as moving money. But obviously they didn't want that for a long, long time. Now the technology is so far advanced that they cannot ignore it. They cannot stop it now. So that's why it has been adopted, because the technology is coming anyway. And because a lot of it doesn't need human intervention, that's what freaks them out. So they're forced to act. So yeah, technology is leading the way, not humans, not in this case. So it's also a lot of the regulations are being developed with crypto people and crypto insiders, and the big, some of the big venture capitalist firms who really are very pro crypto and very anti CBDC, because I've heard so many of them talk, and I know that a lot of them are not with the ultimate agenda that is at the very top. Just because they're rich doesn't mean that they are evil, so we have to sort of bear that in mind. But a lot of crypto people are educating the politicians, particularly in America. So that's good for us, because these people know, how they're obviously wanting to make positive crypto regulations, because they have big firms that they stand to gain a lot more money because of a more easier regulatory environment. So they're batting for us as well in a way, although they're also batting for themselves. All regulations need to be coordinated with all countries to be truly effective. And like I said before, when we look at the BRICS, they're clearly not, they're at odds with the West. You've got a lot of other countries in Asia who just have got no time for anyone in the West, particularly America. And they will do what they want to do. In countries like El Salvador, crypto is legal tender. And I was speaking to someone in El Salvador the other day. They went and moved there because they had a lot of crypto. They had a lot of Bitcoin. They said it is amazing here. Just about all our crypto are accepted, anywhere in the stores. It's like legal tender there. There's a lot of businesses moving there for that very reason, to capitalize on that. So, and the president of El Salvador is very onto it and awake. So you only need one country like that, and that upsets the apple cart for everybody in the central cabal. So, and now I know there's lots of other very crypto-friendly countries. They want the investment. They are sick of the hegemony from the West, and that's why they are adopting it. Another key, obviously, well, I've kind of probably already mentioned it, but obviously regulations is going to do wonders for a price. But that's obviously on the tokens that make it, that make the cut. And that's why I am conservative when I recommend what crypto to buy. That's why I look to the ISO tokens as probably the safest, because you can already see that they have been green lit. And so why wouldn't you want to go for tokens that have already been given the big okay? So decentralization and our more purist decentralized projects will come later. There are some good ones there now, and decentralized finance is going to be very big. And don't get me wrong about that, but we don't know how many of them are going to survive, except Chainlink. I know Chainlink is definitely a shoo-in, and because they are helping to build the infrastructure of the new system. So they are working with the ISO tokens. They're working with Swift even to re-engineer the system. So that's about most of the positives. As far as the negatives go, obviously genuine projects may get eliminated as well. There will be an attrition rate on possibly some pretty good projects that might not just make it. So that will be hard to take. And look, some of our tokens might not make it. But that's why diversification is critical. Because even if you lost 50% of what you're holding, the other 50%, if they go on to make it, then you're going to be way ahead. So don't worry about losing the odd one. It's the overall that counts. The tax implications for these regulations are very unclear, because I know they're wanting to try and bring in a global tax thing where they'll tax you as you cash out, as you try to take profit. There are going to be gatekeepers, so that's where we have to keep an eye on things. Definitely not saying that everything's going to be peaches and cream, but global tax implications are being earmarked for 2027. So we've got a little bit of time for us to figure that out. And by then, the world would have evolved a lot more, and we will find avenues. I know that we will find avenues with some of the incredible infrastructure projects that I am now coming across, and meeting some amazing people who've got our back. So anyway, we still got to watch the tax side. We also need to watch for, obviously, government overreach. They're going to try and shoehorn us into a CBDC, or I'd say it'll be a government issued stablecoin or a government controlled stablecoin, which could be not much different to a CBDC. That's one of the reasons why they also need to regulate, because they've got to regulate for them as well as for the crypto. They've got to regulate for their own design as well. So they've got to try and, one rule for them and one rule for us is going to be very hard, impossible pretty much now for them to do. And there's a big question mark over the self-custody and being able to trade freely without coming up against some of these regulations or these gatekeepers, but especially when it comes to taking profit. Like I said, that there might be, there might be some obstacles there. But what I envision is if this decentralized economy gets big enough, then we never need to take profit back to another system, like a central system. We can actually keep our money within the decentralized area, and we can buy and sell and trade without ever having to reveal ourselves to our adversary, to the opposition, if you like, or the other side, the government or whatever. So there could be some times there where we're going to have to maybe, make a decision, particularly of people now who've got money in the bank. And when the regulations come in, it's going to be very hard to get that into crypto and get it into safety. So, that's another thing is at some stage, the money that we have in our regular bank accounts might be worthless, or might be impossible to move, or it might be getting converted to something you don't want. So I'm not saying that will happen. I don't know, but I'd say that at the very least, I don't think it's not going to profit you much, even if it is able to, you're able to hang on to it. If there's a big inflation coming, or there's a major calamity in the financial market, who knows what's going to happen to that money? So I just think you should bear that in mind. I'm not trying to put fear up people's sails, but it's just be mindful of the fact that if there is a banking, systemic banking issue, let's just say, and if your money's in the bank, and even if you're holding cash, I mean, that might be a little bit longer before it takes hold. But if we just don't know what's going to happen. The fact is, we don't know. no one knows exactly what's going to happen. What I would rather do is I would rather have some eggs in, in various baskets, so that if there is something happens that maybe wipes out, say, one of my investments, or say I've got some money in a bank account and that goes and they bail me in, it won't be the end of the world, because we're going to have our fingers in other pies. So it's just something to be mindful of. But ultimately, I think that we are going to win this war, and it's just a matter of how long it takes. The key thing is how many of us are going to join us, not just in this money system, but in our awareness of we've got to raise our frequency and be mindful of, do unto others would have done unto us, follow some of the basic tenets of common law, follow a basic, sensible, practical kind of viewpoint, because things are going to get a little bit hairy, they are. And that's why we want to sort of maybe find ways to balance our emotions with our thoughts and get grounded and just have some food maybe on hand, or grow food, have some storage of food, and connect with your community and your family and whoever you're still talking with. And just basically just keep faith, keep the faith, basically. And we will be good, because I think that when the dust settles, there's going to be a massive production in this world. There's going to be a massive reorganization, rebuilding, that will be just like after World War II, actually. There will be, some of the films and some of the footage I saw after World War II, where it was literally like a world party and everyone rolled their sleeves up and rebuilt their countries and the world anew. And we will do that again, but I think with a much more decentralized aspect, much more helping each other, because we've just been through the fire. And those of us who have been through the fire, and those of us who are, experienced the worst of what, humankind can be, we're going to be very motivated to create something much better, and not just this obsession around physical materialism. And I think that if everybody's sharing resources and everyone's, if people actually made, we were all custodians of the earth and we're all custodians of all the industries, then there's nothing to fight over, and we don't need to be striving to get ahead at the expense of someone else. There's no need. We just, thanks, Fenna. It's just that we're in this dualistic world, and we have to start finding ways to balance the polarity. Anyways, that's the end of the recording.